Most of the inter-service rivalries were just smack talk, and only the real idiots took that shit seriously.
Gonzo, the Coast Guard Years, New York, Episode 2, Governor's Island.
The trip from South Ferry to Governor's Island was uneventful. I think it took about 15 minutes to take the ferry ride. And in that time, I moved to the front of the Coast Guard ferry, which, now that I'm saying it out loud, seems like something that someone from one of the other services would actually have called us. Coast Guard ferries. Anyway, most of the inter-service rivalries were just smack talk, and only the real idiots took that shit seriously. At least, I think someone with the intelligence of your average Marine jarhead, they all knew that we all joined up for basically, the same reasons. Nowhere else to go, not enough money, needed something to do. And, we all had our reasons for joining. So they kind of put us all in sort of the same weird club, I think. So anyway, inter-service rivalry was usually just good old-fashioned fun. Until something happened in Naval Station Norfolk, but that's for a totally different story. You'll love that one. Anyway, you can tell when the ferry got to the pier or dock or whatever the hell they called it. You could tell by the noticeable bump that the ferry made when it basically was crashing into the mooring place, where the ferry parked or moored up. During the day, I think there was at least 2 ferries running. So if you caught it right, you basically only had to wait like 15, 30 minutes or so to catch a ferry. During non-peak time, I'm not even sure what classified as peak time on Governor's Island. I suspect it was the morning and the afternoon ferry rush hour, I guess. But anyway, after all that, you might have to wait like 45 minutes to an hour for an actual ferry because it would stay longer. They only had one ferry running, and then it would stay longer at one location to make sure it picked up as many passengers as possible. And I'm just babbling now. But after the ferry was secured to the pier, people and cars started leaving the ferry. I, of course, stumbled, tripped, lumbered my ass off, and started making my way to whatever building the guy on the other side told me to go to. Pretty sure he was pointing me basically to the barracks where I was going to be staying for the remainder of my time at Governor's Island. I think it was supposed to be a 10 or 15 minute walk, but no, not for me. I secured all my shit to my body as best I could, and then I started, with my walking, lumbering, sort of waddling routine. And I know I took like 500,000 different breaks because that shit was heavy. Again, I was basically carrying everything that I personally owned on me. So it definitely took more than 15 minutes to get there. And let me tell you, these barracks were super old. I don't know exactly how old they were, but there were rumors that they had been around since World War I or something like that. Governor's Island had been an army base way back when in the Wayback Machine. It went back as far as 1794, and I only know that because I looked it up recently. Basically, the U.S. took over after the British surrendered the island to then Governor of New York, John Jay. And of course, I'd be remiss in my history lesson. Yes, I know you're not here for a history lesson, but let me culture you a little bit. The fort on Governor's Island was renamed to Fort Jay in 1798. So I guess it's fair to say that they named it after Governor John Jay, right? During the next 100 years or so, the Army made some improvements to the barracks to Governor's Island. In 1966, they transferred it to the U.S. Coast Guard. Hence, it became Coast Guard something something base, Governor's Island. I'm not sure exactly what improvements the Coast Guard did to the island or the barracks, but I'm telling you, if they did anything, it's not notable. The barracks had this old reddish brick facade. Yes, I said facade. No, you know what? That's because I'm cultured, damn it. I think it was about 3 stories tall. And they were old. And I don't think they had any damn decoration whatsoever on the exterior. I mean, they may have had some weird brick decoration outside. I don't know. But one of the things that was kind of cool about the buildings, gave it its little World War I-ish charm, were the staircases. A little bit more on that later on. I don't know how I found the right door in this long-ass building, but I did. There was someone sitting behind a desk. The person looked bored as shit, like someone you see sitting behind, a counter or the desk of a dive motel. Although a shitty dive motel would have been far better than this place. The guy behind the counter, who I assumed outranked me, by the way, he didn't. He was a seaman just like me. He was in a Coast Guard uniform and wearing one of those shitty Coast Guard blue windbreaker jackets. Man, those were the worst. I can't even describe how stupid those look. But I knew guys that wore them with regular, civilian clothes because they liked them. And I definitely question the life choices those individuals made. Actually, I don't know what happened to mine. I mean, I have some of my uniforms still, 30 some odd years later, but I have no idea. My mom kept track of all that stuff. And so I have a couple of stuff that my mom gave me recently, or, a couple of years ago. But the weird thing is the stuff that my mom packed and saved, some of it's mine and some of the other uniform items there are not. They literally have somebody else's name that I knew in the Coast Guard on my last duty station's name written in it. And I'm not sure how the hell any of that happened. But whatever, okay. I mean, they definitely belong to somebody else, and I guess they didn't notice that it was missing. I don't know. That was 30-ish years ago. Whatever. I'm sure they're probably not grumpy at me by now or any longer. So anyway, this guy who had one of those, he had like one of those cheesy ass pencil thin mustaches. I mean, they were really common with guys in the Coast Guard. I think I mentioned before I tried to grow a mustache, but it looked stupid, so I got teased and ridiculed. So that didn't last very long at all. It was bad. Okay, I'm digressing. I'm not entirely sure what happened next, but the guy directed me down the hall, turn here, turn there. I don't remember any of that stuff. But I do remember I'm walking past this flight of stairs, and it had these really super cool railings. I believe they were like this really dark wood and really heavy duty. They made big ass railings, and it had this big ass scroll looking thing at the bottom of the stairs. It was big. It was like as big as like a like a dinner plate. It was that kind of big thing. It kind of was shaped like a giant Danish, the pastry Danish, not like but you wouldn't want to eat this though. You definitely would break some teeth. And I remember when you got up the first part of the steps at the landing, there was a payphone there. And for those of you who don't know what a payphone is, go talk to your parents. Ask them. They know what a payphone is, assuming your parents are close to my age. And if they're not, well, then they wouldn't know either. Maybe they know about tin can and strings. But when you got to the top of the main floor, it was this really long ass hallway with rooms on either side, like dorm rooms was really what they were kind of like. Each room was pretty decent sized, I guess. They had bunk beds in the room, and they also had a single bed. So you basically, was designed to sleep 3 people. At least when the Coast Guard took it over, they were set up to sleep 3 people. The walls though were painted like this horrible whitish yellow color, and they were of course made out of cinder blocks, and so basically they're just painted over. Yeah, they were like this weird yellow semi-gloss color on them. Honest to goodness, I mean, I don't know for sure, but if you're inside a prison cell, that's what it would fucking look like, the walls. And the furniture in the rooms, oh, they were fucking total shit too. Each one of us, each bed or bunk had an assigned, stand-up wardrobe to put your uniforms. And I think it had, like 2 or 3 pull-out drawers connected to it. So all in all, I mean, this is it. Despite everything being as shitty as it seemed, I was pretty happy with how things turned out. My roommates, holy crap, I got way lucky. One of my roommates I already knew. It was Rafa from back in boot camp. And if you don't remember Rafa, or you didn't listen to season 1, shame on you if you didn't. Rafa was this Cuban guy that I knew back in boot camp. He ended up getting stationed in Coast Guard base or Coast Guard station in the Florida Keys, Isla Morada. Now, Rafa, so in boot camp, you weren't allowed to have a mustache. But when he got out, he grew this big Cuban, like massive, big ass mustache. And like I said, I couldn't have been any luckier. Yeah, I thought I was going to be surrounded by total strangers. Nope, not at all. My roommate even. I mean, we hadn't seen each other in over a year. It was crazy. Yeah, it was really cool. One of the things that sticks out with me regarding Rafa when he was in Isla Morada was he had gone on vacation or something like that. Leave, they called it in the military. And when he came back, he had found out that one of the entire boat crews, not his boat crew, was arrested for smuggling drugs. I don't know how these fuckers even thought they'd get away with it, but, they thought they would, and clearly they didn't. I mean, what the fuck were they thinking? Apparently, the small boat crew, though, had been involved in some shady shit, and eventually they got caught, and it was like stuff out of a movie, like an episode of Miami Vice. And if you don't know what Miami Vice is, go look it up, please. Though it wasn't really a great show, but it was like the thing back in the late 80s to watch. My other roommate was a guy from Geraldine, Montana. He, like Rafa, had joined the Coast Guard a little bit later than most of us had. I mean, he was definitely older than me, and Rafa was older than me. So everybody was older than me. Well, not everybody, but a good portion of them were. Jim was his name, but it was spelled G-Y-M, not J-I-M, but G-Y-M. I didn't know people spelled their name that way. And Jim wasn't short for like James or gymnasium, just Jim. G-Y-M, Jim. Jim with the G. I don't, what? You know what? I'm not going to make fun of the guy's name because I don't know. It was just weird to me. But you kind of get over it because you really don't think about the spelling of someone's name when you're actually saying, hey, Jim. You don't. Do you? No. He had said that he had a really interesting story. He had said that, when he was in Montana, he just one day decided that he was going to go to Australia. He said he had already gotten his ticket and his passport and all that kind of cool stuff. Told his family he was leaving. He got on a plane and landed somewhere in Australia. Now, so this is what I remember from that conversation. And clearly, I'm just assuming whatever he said was true, but what do I know? He said he had got off, I guess, at the airport and had been hitchhiking for a bit. And I don't know exactly, where he was when this next event happened. But he said he was hitchhiking and some Aussie in a truck stopped by and offered to give him a lift somewhere. And then one thing led to another. I guess during the conversation, when Jim's in this guy's truck, the guy offered him a job at his farm because Jim had nowhere to go and nothing. So it was a sheep farm, I think. And I guess that would have been okay. And I don't remember if Jim had worked on a farm back in Montana, but it seemed like this was sort of a no-brainer opportunity for him. So he lived and worked on the farm. I don't know if he actually got paid money or he just got room and board while he was there, which still is really freaking cool. He had a place to stay. He had food, everything he needed to get by. And I think he also, this is the part I'm a little sketchy on. He may have dated or gone out with the farmer's daughter. I know that sounds like something out of a really bad rom-com or something like that. It was cool. He ended up being a good guy. Not too many stories with Jim, but there are a few. If I can remember them, that I'll tell you about it. Across from the hall we were in, were more students at the electronics school. Some from the class we were in, but it seemed the bulk of them were from the class ahead of us. I don't remember how many weeks they were ahead of us. It might have been maybe a month. Let's go with a month. I ended up being friends with a few of them and ran into a few of them post electronics school. One of them I was stationed with very briefly in Group Woods Hole, Massachusetts. And that was cool. One of the guys that was really super cool was a guy named Ron. Ron was also from Montana, Missoula, Montana, I think. Ron had said that Missoula is where all the old hippies go to die. So if you're a hippie and you're looking for a place to just grow old, go to Missoula. Apparently that's the place to be. Oddly enough, these weren't the first two. These were not going to be the last two people I met from Montana. It's really weird that there's so many people though that I had met in the Coast Guard that were from a Midwestern or upper Midwestern state, not a place that was near even the coast. I'm not sure how that actually happened. Oh, in the guy with the pencil thin mustache that I mentioned who was behind the counter, who showed me where I needed to go, he actually was in the class ahead of us. And he was just kind of tall, lumbering, big, dorky guy. He basically was like the rest of us, but you know what? He would have been he looked a little bit like he could have been, he had a Hitler mustache, but it was kind of thin though. I think he was a dork like the rest of us. What can I say? I think he was also the floor captain or something like that. Cause when we had to have floor meetings, he was the one always in charge. So I guess he was the most senior seaman, which I'm not even sure that really makes any sense. Basically, the only reason for a floor meeting was for this guy to hand out cleaning assignments. Cleaning assignments were, clean the hallways, dump the trash in the hallways, not that there was trash in the hallways. Dump the trash that would have been in the hallway receptacle. I said receptacle. Trash receptacles, or when we were cleaning our rooms, some people would just pile the bags of trash outside of their rooms and somebody would pick those up. And also bathrooms. We had to clean our own bathrooms, and that was just an ugly chore. But I'll tell you more about the bathrooms a bit later. But the weird thing is, I don't know how anybody knew what they were supposed to be doing. I guess it was something that was always passed down from the class before and that, and before that, and the class before that, and all that kind of stuff. Where did they figure out where the chow hall was? You know what the weird thing is? my roommates and I were pretty much late or always running late for something in, Monday through Friday in particular, mornings and I don't know why, because it's not like we had to sit there and pick out an outfit. We had to wear our Coast Guard blues. It was sort of like, what was it? It wasn't the work uniform. They were working blues or something. Maybe they were dress blues, not dress blues. No, that's not it. I didn't even say that. Basically, they were our work pants, but the light blue shirt. And since we were in wintertime, we had to wear the long sleeve shirts. So yeah, we wore the long sleeve light blue shirts and dark blue pants. And I think most of us wore like the little low quarter black shoes. And, Friday night, well, actually, so after working hours or class hours, we could change into civilian clothes. But for the most part, we spent our days in our Coast Guard uniforms. So it was, again, I don't know why we were always late for something. Day one of ET school, pretty much highlighted to everyone there, particularly me, that I had no business being in ET school, electronics technician school. I think our class was basically in the same building as the barracks were. Again, still don't know why I was always running late and my roommates were running late, Rafa and Jim. I don't know how any of that happened. The weird thing is, as many times as we went back and forth to those classes, I still got lost every freaking time. It was like a maze getting to that building, even though there was only like one large hallway, but that there was other small hallways that, veered off of it. Yeah, I was always getting freaking lost. The class themselves, the class was situated with groups of 4 wannabe ETs to a table. So Rafa and Jim and I sat at one, and I don't remember who's the other person that was there. But we had a cast of characters in there. The first real big character was our instructor. I think he was an E5, second class petty officer. He was also an ET, and I don't really remember so much about him in particular. I think he was kind of average build, big ass bushy mustache too, like Rafa. And he had like these big ass glasses, like the kind you saw them wear back like in set. You know what? He had a big bushy porn mustache and the big huge glasses to go along. He looked like he was probably like a porn producer or something like that. Yeah, or something from like one of those 70s or 80s TV shows. I think he kind of looked a little bit like an ugly version of Magnum PI, Tom Selleck. If you don't know who that is, fuck, I'm old. Anyway, but Tom Selleck was a big deal way back on the Wayback Machine. But yeah, but we're not here to talk about TV history. I don't recall a whole lot again about this dude. At least the first day. He went through a whole bunch of like administrative items the first day we were there. I mean, obviously someone has to do that. And I'm pretty sure he gave the shittiest pep talk of all time. I kind of remember or feel like he made us think that we weren't smart enough to even be there. And clearly I know he was talking to me because I definitely was not the sharpest tool in the shed in that group of people. I remember one of the things that he had said, he asked a basic question. Does anyone know what the voltage is that comes out of your everyday common household electric outlet? And of course, that fucker looked right over at me and asked that question. It's clear that my Fauquier County education was showing. I'm like, I have no idea. I didn't learn that growing up. Of course, so bushy mustache guy looked at me all weird and shit. And as a matter of fact, so did everybody else in the room. One of the students blurted out, it's 110 to 120. And I'm like, oh, okay, all right. And then the dude who said it looked over at me like, how do you not know that? And I'm like, he's like, it's like the most basic thing you should know as, to be an ET. I'm like, well, shit. This school was going to be an uphill battle from here on out. Was it too late to go to bosun's mate school? All those guys were basically knuckle draggers. That's it. And if the old BM3 from the Thetis could become a bosun's mate, so could I. Spoiler alert, I didn't become a bosun's mate.
You've been listening to Gonzo, the Coast Guard Years, New York, written and produced by Tim Gonzalez, and I'm Nicholas Gonzalez, the voice guy. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode of Gonzo, the Coast Guard Years.